What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my NFL Week 9 power rankings. But before I rank all 32 teams, subscribe to my channel to be entered into the giveaway at 500 subscribers. We'll start at 32, and the Panthers stay at 32 even after their first win. It was a last-second win, but is this the game moving forward that this franchise can look and turn a page on, with Bryce Young finally getting his first win? Let's see if they can have a repeat performance against the Colts. 31 of the Cardinals, and they lost at home to the Ravens by 7. And the offense finally showed up in the fourth, but it was too little too late. And their big story right now is Kyler Murray. He's expected back possibly this weekend, if not next week. And they obviously traded Joshua Dobbs to the Vikings today. So the quarterback, it's either Murray or Clayton Tune for this Sunday in Cleveland. And it's going to be a tough game regardless because of that Browns defense. But you have to like what they have brewing, now with McBride coming off his career best game and the options that he has, and James Conner possibly back next week too. This Cardinals team could be a team you don't want to face late in the year. Just because the record says they're bad doesn't mean they're going to play that way. Giants are at 30, and this team, probably deserves to be down here because of what they did against the Jets. Blew it with 20 seconds to go. Could have kicked a field goal and made that field goal, and they would have been up 6, and Jets probably wouldn't have came back and won, but they missed. 2 throws by Wilson, kicked the field goal, OT didn't do anything, and then the Jets walk them off. And let's be honest, Saquon is the only thing that keeps this team together and in games. He was the only good thing that came out of this. The QB play of Tyrod Taylor, and the backup, can't even remember his name, Chase something, 6 for 14, 7 yards. So they got to figure that out. 2 teams playing each other that can't figure it out right now are the Giants and Raiders. 29er, the Bears played okay, just couldn't cash in on drives when they needed to and get the points. The defense, though, struggled, and they let them score on 5 straight to start the game. Tyson Bagent, I'd say it's not an awful game. 2 interceptions happens, but he was pretty efficient besides those 2 passes. And their big story for Justin Fields if he's going to be the answer for this franchise moving forward. The Patriots are at 28, staying put, and Mac Jones just seems like he's playing a little better, but it's not convincing me. Could it be Bailey Zappi or Malik Cunningham possibly getting thrown into the fire? Trying to figure it out. They get the Commanders at home this weekend now, a new look defense by trading Chase Young and Montez Sweat. So it probably won't be as difficult as a challenge for these Patriots, but they still got to come out and produce. 27 are my Packers, and in week 4, this was a top 10 team. Here we are now, week 9, and they're almost at the bottom. Ranked 27th, lost the Vikings at home, and they had 3 possessions in the fourth where they were in Minnesota territory and couldn't cash in, get a single point. And, this is what they result. They trade their best corner, Rasul Douglas, to the Bills for a 3rd-round pick. And it just seems like they're kind of not calling it quits on the year, but expecting to not make the playoffs. But that could turn around, get a win this week and hopefully get some momentum going. 26 are the Raiders. They fall on Monday Night Football. Plain and simple, the offense did not show up. It looked awful. They got a free 7 by Jared Goff throwing a pick 6. Devontae, 1 catch for 11 yards. Didn't get traded today. This Raiders team seems like they're going nowhere fast. The Broncos move up to 25, moving back up the rankings for the first time in 5 weeks. And that's because they beat the Chiefs at home, ending the drought since 2015 of losing 8 years it's been since the last time they beat the Chiefs. And the defense was the big story. They've given up 70 points to the Dolphins this year, and then they come out and only give 9 to the Chiefs. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, but Broncos, they took care of business. Russell Wilson played well. Javonte Williams got 30 total touches. And it seems like they're turning a page here. They didn't trade anyone at the deadline. So maybe they're thinking that this team is going to come back and possibly compete for a wild card spot. The Commanders move up 1 after a loss, and it's the 2nd loss that they've had to the Eagles, in either OT or at the end of the game. But they have lost the last 5 of 6 games, and the result, trading Montez Sweat and Chase Young. And they did get a decent return, a 3rd round for Young and a 2nd round for Montez Sweat. So I think it's kind of a win-win there on guys that probably weren't going to re-sign. Sam Howell played his career best game. Dotson and Crowder were the 2 beneficiaries. But they get New England this week, and that's going to be just a game that nobody's going to watch. Colts fall 2 spots after their loss to the Saints, and they keep putting up points, that's for sure. This team can score. They haven't scored under 20 points in 1 game this year, but they're on a 3-game losing streak. And they go to Carolina, and now facing a team that has their first win. It seems like a must-win game if this Colts team want to hang around and possibly compete for that wild card. But Jonathan Taylor's getting healthier, and we've seen it. He's playing better now that he's getting more reps, and I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Taylor. 22 are the Rams. Got embarrassed against the Cowboys at the 1 o'clock games. But it's a must-win game for both these teams, Packers and Rams. Whoever wins that more than likely kind of still has a shot to make the playoffs. Whoever loses, well, might be packing it up and looking forward to next year. And the Rams, though, do have some help returning. Kyren Williams expected back in a few weeks. And if they're in a playoff push, he's going to be a big addition to that team. The Vikings fall one spot even after beating the Packers, and that's because Kirk Cousins out for the rest of the year with a torn Achilles. Huge blow to the team. He was the leader of this team and just really was the glue guy and kept everything together and gave this team a chance to win games. And what did they do? They just went out and acquired Josh Dobbs from Arizona, and sixth round pick. It cost them. I think it's worth it. You have a few backups that could possibly take over the helm with Jaren Hall and possibly even Nico Manning and possibly Colt McCoy, practice squad guy. But they went with Dobbs and see what they're going to do and throw him in because he hasn't played awful. Just Arizona hasn't helped him out. He's got better weapons here. And maybe if he does get this start Sunday against Atlanta, this Vikings team can keep on winning games. And Atlanta is at 20 after their loss to Tennessee. Offense kind of struggled. Bijan did score his first rushing touchdown, but they had a key fourth quarter drive and they dropped the ball on fourth down, pretty much sealing their team's fate. And the defense couldn't stop Will Levis, but the looks get back on track against the new look Vikings. 19 are the Titans that beat those Falcons, and I move him up a lot here because if Will Levis can play half of what he played on Sunday, then this Titans team is going to be a real threat. Derrick Henry, still monster game for him. DeAndre Hopkins as well. And this team could be one of those teams that floats around 500, probably finishes 8-9, 9-8, and could squeak into the playoffs. The Bucs, kind of same situation, lost to Buffalo in Buffalo on Thursday Night Football. And if Chris Godwin would have turned around probably half a second, they might have won this game with a Hail Mary, but that didn't happen. And now they're on a 3-game losing streak. And they need to turn this one around quick if this team has any hope for making the playoffs. 17 are the Texans, and they lost to Carolina on the road. And I didn't really move them down because, they didn't really play their best, but the defense did pretty good, limiting the Panthers. But at the end, it just wasn't their time to win this game. So Stroud's going to come back off his worst showing this year and hopefully get a win for the Texans. The Saints moved to 16 after beating the Colts, and Derek Carr had one of his better games this year. 2 touchdowns, 310 yards through the air. Taysom Hill, great game, and Rashid Shaheed and his big play ability took over in this one for those 3 receptions, 153 yards and a touchdown. And the NFC South is up for grabs right now. It's theirs. They're winning the division by a game. And let's see if they can hold that lead. They got the Bears coming to town this week. The Steelers come in at 15 after losing to the Jaguars. And this one was Kenny Pickett going down with a rib injury. He is a game-time decision for the game against the Titans on Thursday. If not, it's going to be Trubisky stepping in. And Pickens and Johnson looked good. Pickens only with 1 catch for a touchdown, but he needs to be more involved. They did get him targets, but just wasn't enough. And Deontay Johnson, though, has looked reliable since he has came back from an injury. The Chargers move up 2 spots after beating Bears on Sunday Night Football. They get the Jets this week in a very big game for both of those teams. But the story from this one was Herbert, Eckler, and Allen all taking over and scoring on all 5 of their first drives that they started, scoring all 4 of the drives in the first half that they had, and it's kind of over at halftime. 13 are the Jets, and they face those Chargers this week. Once I said it's kind of a must-win game for both these teams to either get to where they want to be or to stay afloat. And the Jets won this game because of the Giants' miscues late in the 4th. But Zach Wilson made the throws when it mattered most. Breece Hall looked great again. And this Jets team could find themselves in a position where Rodgers could maybe return late in the year, come back, walk right into the playoffs, and be a whole different team. I have the Browns falling out of the top 10, going to 12 here. PJ Walker didn't play his best in this one, and it showed, and that's why they lost here, because of the late interception he threw and gave the Seattle Seahawks a chance to drive down the field, which they did, took the lead, and got the win. But after the Cardinals this week, they got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and I think those 2 games are going to decide the AFC North, at least for the next few weeks after. But they got to get Amari Cooper and David Njoku the ball more. Those 2 guys have really made the most of their opportunities when they get the ball. The San Francisco 49ers fall out of my top 10 after 3 straight losses. They head into the bye, perfect week for a bye, but they just couldn't figure out Cincinnati this week. Brock Purdy struggled again. McCaffrey, another great game from him. Kittle as well. But what did they do to bring in some reinforcements? They brought in Chase Young and Bosa and Young off the edges. That's going to be tough to stop for any team. So it's going to, and now Young has an extra week to prepare and get to know the scheme on defense. And it's just going to be more ready that he is going to be for that first game. The Bills jump back into the top 10 after a brief stint out, and it's because they beat the Bucks at home on Thursday Night Football. Finally got the win, but it just didn't seem like they really won the game. It was a struggle for them, but hey, a win's a win, and now they get Cincinnati on the road for Sunday Night Football in a game that will be really good to watch to see what both these teams are made of. At 9, I have Seattle. They took care of Cleveland because of that late interception I just mentioned. But weeks 11 through 15 will decide not only if they win the West, but if they're going to be a legit playoff team. They get the Rams, and before and after the Rams, they get San Francisco twice, Dallas, then Philly. And if they can go, 2-3, 3-2, I think that's a win for that franchise. And I don't think anything any better is going to be good. But if that's the case, they need to get DK the ball more. It just seemed like, those 14 targets were good, but they just couldn't cash in on key opportunities. And they get Baltimore this week, and it's going to be a great slate of football this Sunday. At 8, the Bengals come in after beating the Niners, and they pull off the upset. And now this Bengals team looks like a whole new team. They're 1-3 on a 3-game winning streak now. Get the Bills at home in a big game. Burrow's been playing great, Mixon and Chase as well. And if they can beat the Bills, you might be looking at a top 5 team once again. Lions move up one spot after beating the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Their first game on Monday Night Football since 2018. And this might be your best NFC team to possibly take on the best team in the NFC and dethroning the Eagles. Goff didn't have to do too much in this one as it was more Jahmyr Gibbs show. I think he got 31 total touches, almost 200 total yards. I mean, he's going to be a stud, and they're expected to get Montgomery in week 10. So this Lions team is just going to get some more reinforcements there. And if they can put it all together, this team more than likely is going to run away with the North now that the Vikings don't have Cousins. The Packers aren't doing good. Same with the Bears. And it's kind of the North is theirs to lose at this point. So we'll see what the Lions come out week 10. The Cowboys move up one spot as well after beating the Rams, and it was pretty much over after the first quarter. The pick 6 late in the first quarter pretty much gave all the momentum to Dallas, and they kept it the rest of the game. Tony Pollard, though, has not scored since week 1, which is kind of concerning, but I feel like he is due for a big week. And what better week would that be against the Eagles in a big divisional game? Cowboys win that game. They stayed atop the NFC East with the Eagles. And, if they lose that one, then they're 2 games behind. So it really does matter right now for this game this week in Philly. They can pull off that upset. I'm sure there's not going to be a lot of happy campers there out in Philly. At 5, I have the Chiefs moving down from the number 1 ranking. That's because they lost to the Broncos for the first time since 2015, 8 years since that's happened. It kind of seems like this game is a bounce back game, but it's also a prove it game because they get the Dolphins at home and then they have a bye week 10. Then they come out and face Philly out of the bye. So they have 2 tough games here to get right and get back on track to having the best record in the AFC. And a good start would be beating the Dolphins this week. And those Dolphins come in at 4 after beating the Patriots. Jalen Ramsey's return was key in this one, a interception and almost a pick 6. Now they just need Xavier Howard back, and then this Dolphins defense is fully loaded. But Tua, Waddle, and Hill have just been great so far in these last few games, and I expect it to continue in a high-scoring game against the Chiefs. The Jaguars go into the bye sitting at 6-2 after beating the Steelers on the road. Did what he had to do here, but this was the Travis Etienne show, running and receiving. He did it all in this one. And they're on a 5-game winning streak here heading to the bye. A sleeper team that I think could contend for an AFC championship this year are these Jaguars. And, they're finally getting some credit. But, hey, this defense has been balling out too, and they're a big reason why they're so good this year. At 2 are the Ravens, and they move up 1. And that's because they took care of business on the road in Arizona. Now they get the Seahawks in their top 10 ranked team here. And this was the Gus Edwards show in this one. 3 touchdowns, 80 yards, did it all. Lamar didn't have to do too much in this one, but the defense forced 4 turnovers, and that really shows. But in the fourth quarter, they kind of got lazy and let them score 17. I know they still won, but those are mistakes they're gonna have to clean up. And of course, at 1 are the Philadelphia Eagles, the only one-loss team left, and they beat the Commanders in another tight game. But, a win is a win, and they figure out ways to win games. Hurts balled out yet again, same with A.J. Brown. Sixth straight game with over 125 receiving yards. Devonta Smith had one of his better games this year. And as I mentioned, they play the Cowboys this week in a big game, not only in the NFC, but for the NFC East standings as well. But that's going to be it for the video this week. Make sure you guys check back next week to see where your favorite team ranks. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.